Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how to get a shallow depth of field with Filmic Pro and its manual settings. It's also known as the bokeh effect. If you don't know what either the shallow depth of field or bokeh effect is, it's essentially when something is closer to the lens and in focus, nice sharp focus, and the background is blurred out. So all your attention is going to that subject that you want the audience's eyes to go to. Also, I'm going to show you how to do this whilst you're tracking someone or an object and also moving through an environment and still holding that shallow depth of field. Let's get into it. Right now we can see the background is in nice clear focus. The foreground is quite blurred, which is the opposite of what we want. So we're going to switch that completely and do a 180 with it. As you can see, that white truck in the background is nice as in focus and clear, but we want to make sure that the plant nearest to lens is much clearer than that and create that bokeh effect. So we're going to get the focus wheel on the right hand side and we're going to use our finger to slide it down, and you'll see that the focus is coming right towards the lens. Now this plant is probably about 5-6 inches from the lens, so really close, and you can get such crisp, sharp, accurate, shallow depth of field with this. And now we're going to use the analytics, so we're going to get a bit more complicated. Bottom left here, the A, tap the top right there, circled, and now we're into live analytics, focus peaking. So with focus peaking, you'll see everything that is most in focus and sharp. So the plant that's nearest to us is highlighted in green. As we pull that focus away from us, so we're going to go much further away distance for the focusing, all of that background becomes green, and then the trees at the back eventually become green. And then if we draw it back to us, you'll see that the plant in the foreground becomes green, and we've got a nice sense of shallow depth of field. And if you press A again, that'll switch it off, and you'll see that you've got the image that you want. So that's the basics of getting that done. Let's see what happens now when we go for a shallow depth of focus at different stages of distance. So right now we're really close to the subject, just as we were with the plant. And we've got a really nice shallow depth of field here. But if we take a couple of steps back, we're going to have to then bring that focus away from the lens and towards that subject further, which means as we do that more and more, the background becomes less blurred, so we're losing that kind of bokeh effect. So we're going to bring that shallow depth of field as best we can at different distances, move further back, bring the focus away from the lens again so that we get that nice sharp focus on our subject. But the problem is, as I said, we're going to get less blur on the background as we continue to do that. So it really depends with the shallow depth of field how far your subject is from the lens as to how strong that effect will be. If you've got it further away like this, you can still get that effect, but it's going to be less effective. But if you get right close to the subject and then bring that focus in nice and sharp, it becomes a really nice image again. So something that's quite tricky to do is get a shallow depth of field with a tracking shot. So how do you make sure that you keep that shallow depth of field with your subject without ruining that as you're following them or going behind them? Here we have our subject again, very good actress. And as you're doing the tracking shot, the trick is to keep the distance between you and that subject exactly the same the whole way through that movement. So it can be a bit tricky because if the subject starts to walk closer to you, it starts getting a little bit blurred, a little bit out of focus. And the same as well, if you bring the camera towards the subject too much, you're going to lose that focus as well. So get that consistency of movement, and you can't go too far wrong with this. Just make sure that you talk to your subject, if it's the actor you're following, that you keep that distance exactly the same, as close as you can. One of my favourite ways of getting a shallow depth of field is to move through your environment really close to objects and things like branches if you're in a park like this. So you make sure that your focus is shallow again and the outside of it is blurry, so you're getting that bokeh effect. And as you're pushing through the environment, you're getting this really nice effect of just bringing the audience into the landscape that you're in. And as you can see with these examples, as you're going through the branches, because they're nice and crisp and focused, it really draws you into all the story you're telling, or if it's B-roll, stuff like that. It's a really exciting way to tell a story, and it works really well with just about any kind of filming that you're doing. Okay, so next we're going to get a little bit more complicated with our shallow depth of field / bokeh effect, and we're going to use an automatic focus pull. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the gate behind me here. We're going to start the camera through the hole in the gate. So we're going to have a nice deep depth of field, so you see the sheds and everything behind me, and it looks like that's all we're seeing. Then we're going to move the camera back through that hole, and we're going to change the focus using an automatic focus pull as we're doing it. So we time that so when we finish the automatic focus pull, we're at the gate and it's nice and sharp, so we're revealing our point B that we'll land on. If you don't know how to do an automatic focus pull, I do have a link here so you can watch that at the end of the video. That'll show you how to set your markers and how to change the speeds of your focus pull as well. So we're going to set the first point for this automatic focus pull. So we're going to get through the padlock here so you can't see any of the framing, and get the background here where the sheds and everything in the buildings are nice and sharp in focus. I'm going to tap that middle white line so we set the first marker. We're going to then pull back through the padlock gate, revealing where we actually are. And we're going to get this nice in focus, and when we're happy with the focus, we're going to tap that middle white line again. Just get that where we want it, and tap it, perfect. And then we're ready to start the move. So we tap that white line on top this time, and we're just going to pull away at the same time. So when we reveal where we are, this gate, it's nice and sharp, and we've got a shallow depth of field using a focus pull. So what we're going to do now is have a lot of fun creatively in making a mysterious moment using a shallow depth of field. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have this window frame and the glass panel itself in focus, so that's our shallow depth of field area. And then in the opposite side of the van, we're going to have a character looking in through those windows, and he's going to be out of focus. So what this is going to do is it's going to create a sense of mystery and tension. The audience looking in through this window with us in this nice shallow depth of field isn't going to know at the back of the van who that person is, but you can see the outshadow and outline of a person as well, trying to figure out what they're doing here and what their purpose is. So you don't have to have necessarily the most interesting part of your scene in focus if you want to make an interesting moment for the audience. Now we can see the character in the background looking through the window and having the window nearest to us really lovely and nicely in shallow focus and crisp and clear. Now what this does is it throws the audience off quite a bit as well, so you're not expecting this kind of shot. It's not a standard shot to see in a scene, and it gets the audience's interest straight away in what you're making. Here as well you can see at the top of the screen the light switch. It's a really little subtle nod to some shallow depth of field because the character's in focus, but nearest to the camera it's not in focus. So we're actually playing around with it a little bit there. Here you can see as well I wanted to frame the character in the plants that she has, so you can feel like you're in almost like a jungle with her, and it has that effect of being immersed in her life. Here you can see the alleyway, and what we're going to do is we're going to move that focus reticule right to the centre of that alleyway, right at the end. And because we've got walls either side of us, it's going to create that sense of distance covered. And we can have a nice shallow depth of field with the walls either side. And if you put it into slow motion as well, you can get it nice and smooth too. You can also use it with fences or backs of benches like this where there's gaps. You can have the light poking through the gaps as well, create nice shallow depth of field moments there. You can also turn it into something that's a bit slower and smoother, so you can go into 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second, or 240. So just remember as well that some phones will only let you do those at certain resolutions, but it will allow you to get nice smooth footage for like B-roll and things like that. Now we're going to take a look at some short films that I've made using shallow depth of field, and here with a character really close to the lens in the background with a cityscape in the distance looming over him, because that's the story. He's trying to get away from this kind of this world basically. It's a really interesting way to line up a shot and have him nice and in focus and feel what he's feeling. With this scene you can use props as well for shallow depth of field, so if there's something important in your film as well, make sure that that's nice and close and crisp and clear. You can make sure that that's clearly an important thing to the audience to see. Moments of tension are really good for this as well, with the hand, little moments and movements that people would normally do so you relate to them. Moments of tension as well show things that you wouldn't normally see perhaps in the film to draw the audience into how they're feeling. And this one's really good, so you can have something swinging in and out of focus as well, so it's a nice little moment there, something you wouldn't perhaps expect to see. You can also use automatic focus pull to bring something important to the attention of the audience. Horror moments too, perhaps something like a knife. And here you can see we're really close up to the actress's face. This is in Plant Lady, my short film, and it just gives you that sense of someone going slightly crazy. And you're not quite sure what's going to happen next, but you know that she's becoming a little bit unhinged. Cutaway sequences as well and transition scenes you can use this for. And here we're using lighting actually to create more of a shallow depth of field. So whilst the character is close to the lens and we're getting that shallow depth of field, the light in the background is giving us more sense of depth. So if we didn't have that lamp, it would be okay, it'd be nice, but it'd be a bit 2D and a bit of a flat image. But because we have that lamp in the background, it makes you feel more immersed in the scene and like you're actually watching a real location. And the great thing about a smartphone is you can get really invasive in towards someone's face and create something that's quite unique compared to, say, a DSLR, for example. In this scene, we can see the character crawling towards the bottle, which is really pivotal in this story because it shows that she's hungover, she's been drinking a lot overnight, and that she's worse for wear. And as she comes towards the lens, she becomes more in focus herself with that bottle, and we can start to feel her anxiety, her frustration, and her illness as well. Also, as she pushes the bottle away, it creates a nice moment where it actually rolls past the lens and creates a nice significant point for the film. As you can see guys, the shallow depth of field is a technique with Filmic Pro that you can use for virtually any kind of project that you make. Whether it's narrative films like I make, or if it's hobby videos like gardening, cars, that kind of thing, or vlogs and travel videos, it can really add another dimension to the projects that you're making. Also guys, I really would tune in next week. I've had a delivery in the post of a very, very cool new smartphone accessory that's going to take everything to the next level for outdoor filming. So tune in because you do not want to miss out on this. And if you enjoyed this video and learned a lot, Please do hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, all helps this channel grow, and leave a comment if you want to as well. Take care, see you soon, bye bye.